What's going on, everyone? Welcome in to another episode of Wildly Informed. Your host, Brett Marshall, here alongside my partner in crime for this podcast, Isha Jerome. Isha, I hope you didn't have to drive this evening because I did, and it's horrible. Like, the first snowfall of the year is just like sheer panic for drivers. But like, I will say, like, the drivers were actually fine, but the roads were just so bad. Like, every bridge I drove over was just like an ice rink. There's like the 169 bridge, if people know where that is, like just south of Eden Prairie, like between Eden Prairie and Shakopee. I think getting onto that bridge to getting off it, I think it took me 35 minutes, and it's usually like 2 minutes. It was just like, it was rough. So hopefully everyone that had to drive tonight is doing well.
Yeah, no, I didn't have to drive. One of the benefits from working from home, I suppose. I didn't have to do a job on site, so that was good. I went for a run right when it started snowing, and my nose almost froze off. So that sucked. But other than that, because I'm like halfway through this run and I'm like, I'm already an hour in. It's probably gonna take me an hour to get back, and I'm freezing. Like, yeah. That gloves, long johns. Like, I was prepared because it wasn't nice out today. But once the wind started howling, I was like, oh no. So I think finally my nose is like somewhat not red anymore. But I was looking like Rudolph there. But first, like, I think legitimate, like, all day flurry, not flurry versus like we woke up, I think, one day to some snow and it was gone by like 10, 11. Today was like the first, I think it was like in the 20 to 30 all day range. So winter has arrived.
Yeah, and I looking out like the 2-week forecast. It looks like I think those 50s that we have, whatever it was, like Monday and Sunday and a little bit of Tuesday, like that's gone.
Yeah,
and it ain't coming until 2025 again. So
winter's here. We're in it, and hey, we're deep in the hockey season now too. As Bob McKenzie always said, once American Thanksgiving rolls around, that's when you can really look at a team and be like, okay, this is what you are. And obviously there's some outliers. I mean, look what the St. Louis Blues did a few years ago. But for the most part, this is what your team is, other than, some ups and downs, some bumps and bruises due to injury, and, other teams in your division, for example, going on runs every now and then. But like, for the most part, this is the measuring stick moving forward.
Yeah. To your point, I found it from USA Today. 75% of the NHL teams in a playoff spot at Thanksgiving go on to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, and the Wild are sitting pretty. So, like you said,
hey,
we're in a good spot.
Bobby Mack knows what he's talking about. Which is crazy. I had the pleasure of meeting him when the World Juniors are in Vancouver. Him and James Duffy, which was awesome. But I think he only does like World Junior stuff now, and
he's like mostly retired, I think.
He's just like, he just hangs out in his cottage, and I think he has like a Bobby Margaritas like can drink that he's pushing as one of his many like brand deals and things like that. So
that's awesome.
Anyway, so what do we got coming up on the show here, Brett? I mean, it's not much different than last week's or the weeks before, because the Wild
just like
keep winning, and the same holes are the same holes, and the same things that are standing out are still standing out.
Yeah, it's just they keep winning the same way. Like, what they're doing is just like we mentioned, like, it's repeatable, and everything's just kind of going well. And they haven't lost 2 games back to back in regulations. There's like not a lot really to digest with losses, because their losses have more or less kind of looked like one-offs. And I was at the game on Saturday against Dallas, and like, it was an excruciatingly boring game to watch. Because like, Dallas is a really good team, but like the Wild, without 3 of their best players, I thought for the most part defended them pretty well. Like, Dallas had some good looks here and there, but like, I think the final shots were like 40-24, whatever they were, but it didn't feel like a game where the Wild were outshot like 2-1. Like, it was just like, here's like a lot of Dallas' shots came from kind of nowhere, and like, it was pretty easy saves, but so it's like, all right, do we have a little bit of panic here with injuries? Nope. 2 of them are back again. Like a couple days later, so it's like everything's just the same. So we had to get creative with the topics today. So we're going to talk a little bit just about some players that have bounced back in like really nice ways so far this year, and Freddie Gaudreau, Jake Middleton. We'll talk a little bit. I think that the biggest topic has been that first line that was so dominant last year getting reunited. So we'll talk a little bit about that, probably regurgitate some things you've already heard on it. And then for our Pucky Opinion segment, didn't even have this on my mind really until after last night's game. And then I tweeted out a stat that Matt Khusnutdinov had as many shots in his last 6 games as Ben Jones had in like 7.5 minutes last night. And then it got me to look in a little bit more to just like how bad, frankly, he's been offensively. And we'll talk a little bit about why I think we need to see more from him. That what he's done is not enough, in my opinion. But we'll see.
We might actually have our first little argument here because though I think like, yeah, we need to obviously see more, like we've been saying about the entire bottom 6. I'm more in the camp that like he's trying and I've seen him try and there's some anchors around him and it's like there's only so much you can do, but we'll dive into that. We'll dive into that. All right. Joseph, let's fight. What's up, Joseph? What's up, Mateo? What's up, Hot Takes? Good to see you. I mean, even when the Wild are winning, fire everyone. Season's over. Murat's not producing. All right, let's get to the first segment here, guys.
Oh, do we lose our music there?
Yeah, I guess we don't have music for this one. Well, there you go. Bounce back seasons. No idea why the music didn't play there, but okay. Well, we had the graphic at least. All right.
The analytics. Agenda. Yeah, so here we are. Like I said off the hop there, we want to talk about 2 guys maybe that like, I mean, I think one of them maybe got talked about a little bit more than the other, so we'll start on the other one. We're going to start with Freddie Gaudreau, a player who, if you were a listener to Sound the Foghorn or follow me on Twitter, you know that I've been pretty critical of. But I think like we're seeing exactly now what we want out of a $2 million bottom 6 forward. I think it's been a really pleasant surprise. I think like ever since he kind of got that bump, he started the year kind of in the 4th line with Khusnutdinov, Lauko, and then just kind of out of some line shuffling, injuries here and there, he got moved to the 2nd line with. He's been mostly Foligno and Trennan, but we've seen a little bit lately too with like Foligno and Hartman. And kind of ever since getting elevated to that 3rd line, he's really like seemingly found the forms of kind of that 2 seasons ago when he put up 44 points. Like if you look at his numbers across this season and compare him to last season, literally across the board in like both kind of his regular counting stats as well as kind of the key advanced stats. So he's scoring a bit more per 60. His per 60 rates for goals, assists, points, all up quite a bit. His points per 60 is more than doubled since last year. So I think last year he finished with, I think it was under 20 points or something, like 19. It was like 15 and 5 and 14 or something. And now this year on pace, I believe, for 41 points, which would be just 3 off his career high. And that's seemingly with, he didn't have a point, I don't think, for the first like 9-10 games of the season. So done a lot more of that as of late. I think there was like a streak in there with like 6 straight games where he put up a point. Advanced stats, like his Corsi share, his expected goal share, still below kind of that ideal 50% mark. But when you look at where that was compared to last season, especially his expected goals, that jumping up from a pretty putrid 43.9. We've already seen that jump up to a 47.9 this year. So, it's a 4% increase on a 6%. Good math there, Brett. But we're seeing that improvement. I think that's going to continue to climb here as he continues to stabilize on that. Where I think he solidified himself probably ahead of Trennan into that kind of that 3rd line spot, even when they're healthy again. But we'll see for sure. But yeah, it's just been great to see him just kind of produce and have scored some noticeable times. And it feels like every time he has chipped in, it's when they've needed that 3rd line to kind of be on for a game. He was a soft night for the top line. So, I think it's great to see because it's a guy that we all kind of want out of here, wanted him to get traded. But for $2 million, I think we're getting kind of exactly what we would hope now.
He's like the only one in the bottom 6 who's bringing some offense right now.
Yeah. Unless you include Hartman, who's like bounced. He's more.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if I include Hartman because like he really is that guy who's bouncing.
He's the middle 6. Like he is penultimate.
Yeah. 6. Yeah. I mean, like look how much he's producing this year already. 9 points.
Yeah, he had 15 all of last year. Like 6 more points to pass what he did all of last season.
Buried shutdown role and injured though, I will say, last year.
Yeah.
Whereas he kind of buried in that shutdown role this year too, but it just like you can just see he's so much quicker. Like, yeah, it's night and day.
Well, and I think too, like I hate plus minus as a stat, but like goal share does matter. Like the fact of the matter is like the
Yeah, when it's minus 20 though, even Brett, even you are gonna look at it and be
yeah,
like
minus 20.
okay.
But like this season, his goal share is 64.3%, like at even strength. Like the Wild are like that's way up from last year, which was 30% last year. Like that's a huge increase, like 34% increase so far to this year. Like that's awesome. Like I think we knew he would like that ever since that he got hit by Reeves early in the year in Toronto. Like his game seemed to just never find itself again. So maybe it's just a matter if he's healthy again too. But either way, it's been really nice to see.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, we'll get into it later in the show, but like in a bottom six, you know, when Hartman's not there and Freddie Gaudreau is really the only one who gets anything going in the offensive zone other than bringing the puck there and then skating to the bench or getting tangled up and it popping out of the corner and the other team's coming back the other way. So no, it's been awesome. On whenever I do the live streams, I'm always just like our Lord and Savior Freddie Gaudreau, or like, oh, the best player on the team, Freddie Gaudreau. Or just like I always have something to attach to him because every time he's on the ice, it's nothing but positivity so far this season.
Yeah, it's been good. So it's nice to see because I think like, you know, if you look at what a lot of people talked about, like, hey, coming into the year, what do the Wild need to do to be a playoff team? And it was, you know, the goaltending's got to get better. The special teams need to improve. They have to stay healthy. And then some of these guys like Freddie Gaudreau, like Ryan Hartman, and like this next guy we're going to talk about, Jake Middleton, had to kind of rebound and improve and get back to forms that we've seen previously. And Freddie certainly has. And the next guy here, Jake Middleton, I think too, has taken a nice step back in the right direction.
Here, I'll bring it up in a sec. But
yeah, so I can talk. We pull it up. So yeah, Middleton. Like I just think, I think he's one that's even maybe more noticeable through the eye test. Like I talked coming into the year, just like how much he depended on Jared Spurgeon last year, and how he kind of crumbled under Brock Faber. And when Spurgeon went down, we even talked, I think, a little bit on this show, being a little bit nervous about Middleton and Faber, and if that would work. And long story short, it has. And we've almost seen like this new dimension to his game unlocked with his production this year too. Now on pace for career highs in goals, assists, and points, like up by nearly half a point on all, like a quarter to a half a point per 60, like across the board. 10 points already through 18 games. He had 25 all of last year. Has never had, what was it, more than, that was a career high last year, 25. So like on pace to absolutely shatter that. I think he's on pace for like 40-ish, somewhere like, I think actually pretty similar to Freddie Gaudreau. Funny enough, we actually have very similar.
Well, and I thought he was going to score again last night, but Kaprizov ended up getting the tip. But I first thought it was Middleton's goal. I was like, oh my God, here comes another one. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I think that's one thing. Like we're seeing him like in these plays he's making the offensive zone have been like smart, timely jump ins to the zone, like shooting the puck. Like it's been great to see this kind of what he's been doing. Advanced analytics, they've dipped ever so slightly, both his shot share and his expected goal share. But I'm not too worried. I think like we have a small enough sample where I can confidently say like his quote unquote bad or sub 50% expected goal share, I think is more due to like a couple bad games, like 3-4 bad games versus like consistently that bad, because he's been over 50% in more than half the games. 11 of the 18 games he's had a 50% or more expected goal share. The points have come, and then in a very similar vein to Gaudreau, we've also seen about over a 30% jump in his on-ice goal share as well. I believe him and Kaprizov, he's plus 17 right now. I believe Kaprizov is 2, and I want to say that's near the top of the league, if not the top. So, it's really good. Like I think the biggest thing for me is he's just showing that he can be effective away from Jared Spurgeon, and that feels good. Obviously right now, but also looking long-term and knowing this is a guy that, I was really nervous when they signed that contract. I was like, he did not show me he deserved that last year, but now that's looking, I think, pretty solid, given what we've seen so far.
Yeah, man, I agree. I've been really impressed with both of them thus far. And I mean, talk about, just to throw one more in the mix, and it's someone we talked about last week. So if you didn't go listen to the podcast last week or check out the YouTube video, go check it out, because we talked about it in this segment. Brodin and Spurgeon. Now, Spurgeon obviously like didn't play much last year due to injury, and then we had that scare early on this season when he was pulled out of the lineup for a few games, but he's looked really good this year. And basically, like, yeah, Faber and honestly Middleton, they'll usually have the most minutes on the back end, but it's pretty evenly distributed. I mean, other than, you know, if they are on the PK, sure, Bogosian might get a little bit more, or if they're on the power play and Chisholm's in there, then Chisholm will maybe get a little bit more. But other than that last pairing and the caveat of if they're being used for special teams, it's like the first two pairings pretty even minute distribution, and I like that because everyone's kind of chipping in on the back end. Now, again, Bogosian didn't have that great of a game in the St. Louis game. Chisholm made up for some of his mistakes, I think, offensively. Even though they couldn't capitalize on the power play. I'm not going to put it on him because, you know, he's in and out of the lineup, right? Not usually the one to quarterback that, but there were some moments late in the game where I'm like, hey, you made up for some of the mishaps that him and Bogosian were making earlier in the game. But for the most part, I just wanted to give Spurgeon his flowers too, because coming back and bounce back, if you want to call it as well, bounce back in the lineup, he's looked really good too.
Yeah, he's a great name to call out because I think too, like, even look like the first two games out of the regular season, like him and Middleton were bad. Like they did not look good. Spurgeon did not look right, and like we talked on this show, like is that it? Like is this his last season? And now he looks like, you know, he's back in prime form. Like him and Brodin, I think now are on an 8-game run of having an expected goal share above 54%. And I think they've had more games in like the 65 to 75% range than they've had like less than that. Like they've just been like phenomenal. They were great again last night.
Yeah, how about that goal from Brodin? I mean, I know a lot of it was Middleton had that entire right side open. Mm-hmm. So that was just like asking for Brodin to be like, oh, it's just right there, just a good old clapper, and you know, as long as I throw it even just close to the post, it will go in. And that was a nice shot from Brodin.
Well, how awesome does it have to be too? I think it was LaPanta that brought up when the Wild were playing the Canadians, they had like 2 total goals from their blue line, and I don't think a ton of points. But like, you look at the Wild, like, you have Declan Chisholm when he's in the mix, like Middleton, Faber, Spurgeon, Brodin. Like these are all guys who can, you know, jump in on the forecheck and, you know, bring it from a 3-man forecheck to a 5-man forecheck. I don't think that can be like emphasized enough how I think important that's been to the offensive zone success that the Wild do have when they finally get it. Is how well just collectively that kind of that top 4 group plus Chisholm, a little bit of Bogosian here and there too at times. I feel like help the offense a little bit in terms of just they're willing to shoot the puck, you know, throwing out shots to tip and holding zones and keeping zone time alive. Like that's been good to see. And I don't think it's something a lot of teams, not certainly don't have 4 guys who can potentially do that.
Yeah, no, you're right. Bogosian, he'll fire it in every now and then as well. I mean, I always forget that he was like a top guy when he came into the league. Mm-hmm. When I want to say it was a Buffalo, right? But anyways.
Sounds right. Or was it the Thrashers?
I can't remember now. We're getting old. Each of us just Brett on to elite prospects. I'm on to DB.
Yep.
I remember.
I was right. 2000 overall by the Thrashers.
Oh wow. Oh, and then Jets. Okay, that's right. Must be thinking of, there was another duo in Buffalo. It was like Montour and somebody. Maybe it's Theodore and Montour in Buffalo. Maybe that's what I was thinking of. But anyways, yeah, solid run of the Jets. Oh, and then he went to Buffalo in 14-15. But anyways, besides the point. And look at that, a cup with Tampa Bay.
It's true. He is a Stanley Cup winner.
There's been a couple of those who've come through Minnesota now.
Yeah, Pat Maroon.
Yeah. Last thing you wanted to get to in this segment.
Yeah, like I said, I think some of this will probably be regurgitated from what you've listened, heard, read other places, but I still did want to give my little 2 cents on it because I did write like half that Russo article with all their stats. I'll got to take a little bit of my credit there. He asked me for those to pull them for him. So the ones I'm referring to, like this is that at Kaprizov goalie line. back together last night, looked great again, scored a goal, 60-some%, expected goal share, like right back to where they left off last year. And I think it's important to call out that like higher expected goal share, because that's just not, and that it wasn't just like because they played good D, it's because they actually like did stuff in the offensive zone. They think generated close to like an expected goal in their time on ice, which is pretty good. Something the Wild forward lines haven't done a lot this year. So it was good to see. Because what they did last year, 63 games together, 374 minutes, outscored opponents 31-18, outshot them 236-168, out-attempted them 451-344, controlled 62.4% of the expected goals. If you look at Money Puck, that's like top 8 for like all forward lines NHL, like all season long. They've just been so good. I think they have games that complement each other really well. Like either all do things well that really work well together, or if the things that one falls short, someone else is really, really good at and picks up the slack. Like there's just this all around chemistry of these three highly skilled players. And I mean, I think you just saw it a couple times last night. I think there's a couple shifts specifically with like Spurgeon and Brodin, where the five of them would just start get going. And it just felt like what we saw last year that made that team so exciting at times. It's like every time they're on the ice, it seems like there's a legitimate scoring chance. So, they're going to be a tough line to stop. Last night did ease kind of my biggest worry with it was, can you get scoring from other lines? And we got 2 from the Rossi, Johansson, Hartman line last night. So eases those worries a little bit. But, I think basically if they keep doing what they're doing and, this line gets going a little bit and it keeps Kaprizov and Boldy producing, which, I mean, that's been the recipe they've had to follow here to start the year, is those two got to get probably one of those two has to score every game, if not both of them, for them to have a chance to win. And if putting them on the same line gives you the best chance of that, that's what you have to do. So, I'm excited to see, especially like a game like tomorrow where you're going up against a McDavid line or a Draisaitl or both, and seeing what that head-to-head matchup could look like.
Yeah, no, for sure. I guess the only thing to maybe throw into rebuttal is like, well, we're still looking for scoring from the bottom 6. Zuccarello is going to be out of the lineup. I mean, I like that second line
minimum
too.
3 to 4 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, we were talking about that before we went live, and it was just like, all right, well, we've talked about ruptured testicles enough. Want to go live and do a podcast now? But thank God his was not actually ruptured, but like, my God.
Yeah.
From a male perspective, watching that, it was just like, oh, damn. Mm-hmm. But anyways, I guess it's just like Hartman's not in that bottom 6. So does that just put all the responsibility to carry offense based on what we've seen right now on Freddie Gaudreau? Which, I mean, he seems to be like, I'll take it. I'll take that on, boys. Like, wherever you need me, second power play unit, even though that's just been a revolving door with the injuries right now. Wherever you need me, I'll step up, and he's noticeable. But, in a time like this, I mean, with the top line seemingly going to be the one that's leaned on for scoring, and, Rossi playing okay with Johansson, I mean, do you think Hartman maybe getting thrown down and moving somebody up, maybe someone who might be a little bit critical of the lack of offense, Khusnutdinov, might be worth it?
Yeah, I think like what we'll see is the top 6 forwards are going to stay the same and the bottom 6 forwards are going to stay the same. If at times things stagnate for whatever reason, like if this line somehow goes cold, I think maybe you just kind of shuffle that deck of those 6, but I don't see like a full wholesale, like you switch 12 around, because like you said, like there's nobody in the bottom 6 that has hinted that they can contribute on offense. We'll get to the Khusnutdinov stuff in a bit, but like I'm going to rip into him a little bit, his offense, but I want to point out too that like Lauko and Trennan and Foligno, like they're not far off from some of this stuff either. Like it's been a 4-man committee of just nothingness on offense in that bottom 6. They've played good defense, so it's helped cover for it a little bit, but I still want to maintain that long term, like 2 of those guys in the bottom 6 have to get to like 25, 30 points if this team is going to make any kind of dent and serious playoff run.
Well, if Boldy and Kaprizov go down, done. Like
Correct.
the team
If one of them goes down, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if two of them, I mean, like it's over. If one of them goes down, you can maybe patch it up, or maybe we see one of them step up even more. It's somewhat salvageable. But if you get two of your scorers go down, it's done. Like the season is over, right? And like that's two players. Like that can happen. We see it all the time in hockey, right? So
yeah, and I think
what it doesn't.
Yeah, I had a tweet about this because someone had asked me. I think this was prior to probably the Dallas game and the St. Louis game, which it probably still roughly holds true from those games. But they asked like what percentage of goals had Kaprizov factored into this year, and it was like 54% of the Wild's goals. Kaprizov had either surprised. A goal assist or a secondary assist, and I think it was either the goal or the primary assist on like 40% of the goals. So like 40% of the team's goals this year, pretty much. Like I was tempted to look up the other half of that and see like how close is that. So
it's Boldy and Zuccarello.
Yeah,
because Zuccarello has been scoring. Because I mean, early on, he was the one scoring the goals, and Kaprizov was setting him up. And then Kaprizov doing his thing, and then was scoring empty net goals left, right, and center too. So
yeah, Zuccarello last night. So. Yeah, that was a stat I think I looked up too. Zuccarello has 6 goals this year. 5 of them, Kaprizov had the first assist on.
Yeah.
And then the one he didn't, he had the second assist. It's like every Zuccarello goal came from Kaprizov, pretty much like directly. So
not surprised. All right, let's get to our second segment here, ladies and gentlemen. Puck your opinion.
I just want to say, Puck your opinion.
Hey, audio worked on that one. Good to see you.
Yes, I don't know what happened with the other one, but anyways.
Yeah, I don't know. Just wanted to be
now we got some little extra post-production work to do. There you go.
Yeah, that's okay. All good. So today we are going to talk. My opinion is that the Wild need more out of Murat Khusnutdinov. I think we're now 34 games into his NHL career, and to me, there has not been enough on the offensive side of the puck. And I'm not saying this is a guy that needs to be a point per game player, average 3 shots a game or what have you, but like I wanted to paint this picture, so I looked up today. So 5-on-5, or excuse me, all situations, there are 308 players who have hit the 200 minute time on ice threshold. Khusnutdinov is like 208. So that gives us pretty much a pretty fair comparison. Everyone's either played as much or more than him. And if we adjust for that little bit of difference using per 60 rates, like this is where Murat Khusnutdinov ranks across the board on the key offensive stats. So time on ice is 298th of that group per game, lower end. But that said, he's dead last in goals per 60, dead last in individual chances per 60, dead last in shots on goal per 60, dead last individual expected goals per 60. He's 10th worst in points per 60. Assists, he's like near the bottom. 253rd of 308 is the highest he gets for any of these. Like, we're not talking about someone that just like hasn't done a lot on offense. Like, he's done like worst of the worst, bottom of the barrel. And the reason I just felt like a little bit compelled to bring this up, and like I've given Khusnutdinov some flowers this year. I've complimented some of the speed that we've seen, some of the good pace, a little bit of the forward checking here and there. Obviously, his value on the penalty kill has been noticeable, especially as of late. But I think, we're 34 games in here. He has 5 total shots on goal this year. He has 11 across his first 34 games. Like, this is a guy who across the KHL was averaging 1.2 shots per game. That's down to 0.32 now in the NHL. Like, we know there's more. Like, the reason I'm a little bit like frustrated is we know there's more to his game, but for whatever reason, he just hasn't shown it. He's been a little bit passive and seeming like he feels like he has to move the puck or pass the puck. But this is more for the people that have said like, oh, Ryan Khusnutdinov needs to be on PP2, or in a pinch, he should be the one moving up the top 6. I was like, there is nothing here to me that says he is top 6 worthy. Mateo, who I think is in the chat here, had brought up like, I think part of it's, and I think actually, I'll let you go because I know it's in your thing about line mates. So I have a counter argument.
Yeah, well, I have a few things. Do I think first of all that like, okay, let's solve this by like giving him like moving him up the lineup? No, like you don't reward a guy for not scoring, even at in this situation, right? So like, I'm not in the camp of like, We need that. I'm more of like, I think it's a circumstance thing right now more than anything. And I want to preface it by saying, like, look, man, like he was on a better pace last year coming in at the end of the season when everyone knew they were out of it. Now, like, they're winning right now and he still can't get anything going. So obviously, like, I am at this point, I'm in the same boat in that, like, it's fair to critique, but I think if you look up everybody, especially the two other guys who have been playing with him, and Trenin and Lauko, like, yeah, they might not be last in all these things, but they're probably down there as well. And I think they, in like from my side of it, they fail the eye test more than Murat. So I think it's more of like a balance, because you mentioned speed. Even last night he didn't have a good game in the faceoffs. The Wild sucked in the faceoffs last night. Like, it was so bad. Like, and that was something I was screaming while streaming as well, like every single time. So he didn't do well in the faceoffs last night, but overall this season been solid in the faceoff. He's definitely, like, yeah, Lauko's fast. I think Murat uses his speed to, like, way more effectively. And he's better, like, just side to side and on his angles as well. You mentioned games. He's loud in forechecking. I just think he's buried in this role right now, and that's the key issue. Because I don't think, like, the Hines is doing them any favors. Not that he needs to, because they're winning games right now, but it's like, it seems like every single night, and I don't know if this is on the players or if this is like a mix of both, especially his line, it's the same thing. He'll come out there for a face-off, go to the bench, or he'll make the first pass to a Lauko or Trenin. They bring it in, they'll lose it in the corner, and the puck doesn't even have there's not even an opportunity to make a play. And I know that's, I'm not saying that's like, just put the blame on the wingers there or just the line mates. It's a collective effort, but it's just like, it's the same thing. They bring it in, they skate off, they bring it in, they lose it. There's already a change coming in. And it's just like, are they not, like, even trying to run anything? I refuse to believe that every single line is shutting them down, forcing them to do that, because I'll see Murat when he's the one who doesn't have to make the first pass, or he has it, he'll actually try to make a play, and there's no one there. There's not even anybody, like, next to him. There's no one behind him. They're either skating to the bench or they're being checked in the corner. So that's where I'm like, yeah, we need to just maybe even see a little bit more effort, or maybe just some of that skill that we saw in the KHL, like, get by a guy and shoot the puck versus just send it, across the boards and hope that Trenin or Lauko get free. So maybe it's, some of the decision making there. I would like to see maybe just be a little bit more offensive and just go back to some basics and just shoot or get that puck close to the net. But I do think every other thing, as far as, like, checking the boxes, is there, other than just, like, that last step of, like, just get that puck on net, because everything else you're doing in your own zone, the neutral zone, and getting the puck to the offensive zone is there. And it just sucks that he's not learning from the mistakes. And maybe it's just because Hines is like, no, you guys are doing your job, and that's fine, because we're not expecting you to score anyway. So I don't really know, like, I guess long of the short of it, my concern is, how is this going to be fixed? Because it doesn't seem like the coaches and the team are punishing him for it, because the team's still winning and he's, like, doing everything else right other than scoring.
Yeah. And like, I want to add, I don't know if I added this to the top, I meant to, like, I don't want this to be like Murat Khusnutdinov bad. Like, that's not what I'm saying, because if you have the second chart that I did with the on
I got that one too,
stats. Yeah, that one. So, like, you can see, like, there are two that stick out here. His goals against per 60, 32nd best in the NHL. His expected goals against per 60, 27th best in the NHL. So it's not like when he's out there that they're bleeding chances, right? Like, he has a bad expected goal share, but, like, this is probably one of the very rare cases when a bottom six forward has a bad expected goal share because of a complete lack of offense versus actual bad defense. Because they're not defending poorly. It's just like you said, it's like
it just fades once they're in the zone. It's like
line change, or
what do we do?
Or it's like they cross the red line and they forget, like, you can play offense too. You did a really good job playing defense. Like, turn that into something now. Like,
it doesn't seem like they either get caught in the corner or they just beeline it back to the bench. And it's just, I have to, again, I refuse to believe that that's just the players doing the same thing every time. And it has to be on the coaches as well. To be like, okay, you did your job. You got it in there. One of you keep that puck in the corner and let's get the next line out there. Because that just seems to be what is. Now, again, there are some cases where they'll move it and Lauko will get a shot. Great. But, like, it's few and far between. I think Lauko had, don't quote me on this, but I remember one shot from him or one opportunity from him in that line last night. There might have been a couple others, but like there was one that stood out. And it's
Yeah,
that's not enough.
and I think like you just want to see that line for maybe like one, maybe two shifts a period. Like spend 30, 40 seconds in the offensive forechecking. Like even if it only results in one shot, just like even just stay in the zone. Like it feels like that's even kind of hard for them right now. And to the point about like this is the thing I want to make. It kind of ties into what you were saying, but like I've seen some arguments for like, well, he proved he could score in the KHL when he's playing with better players. So it's a small sample that we have to go off of, but we've seen it even a little bit across these last couple of games. Like we've seen Kaprizov get double shifted a couple times, or Boldy get double shifted. Khusnutdinov has 18 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time with Kaprizov this year. His expected goals per 60 rate is only 0.02 expected goals per hour higher. So like basically no different with and without Kaprizov, which to me, it means like he is such an anchor right now that playing with literally arguably the best offensive player in the league this year cannot even fix his zone time issue. Like to me, that was actually a pretty big indicator of like, yeah, there might be something here. So what is the fix? I don't know. I don't think it's new line mates.
That's just so, and like it's like I don't even like I'm like my brain, like I'm getting tired just thinking about like how is that even possible? Because like we've seen it before. Like it must be one of those things too where he's just like maybe snake bitten is the wrong word, because you see guys who are snake bitten when they're like shooting and like not hitting the net. They're like, oh, it's just like he's just so in his head right now, like this is how I stay in the NHL. This is how I stay in the NHL. This is how I feel like, and maybe that's just it. But then there's some games where he actually tries. Like, dude, there's a few times where I've seen him do like off the boards, pass to himself, spin move, look for someone in the center lane, nobody there. And I'm just like, fuck, that was such a sick play. Or like him darting by himself into the offensive zone, 3-on-1, nobody. And I'm just like, damn it.
And I think that's a little frustrating
more than anything when it comes to the offense, because defensively they know their assignment and they rarely screw it up. But it's just like, man.
And I think that's what's frustrating, right? Is because we see little plays and flashes like that. And like, he wasn't like an all-star, like point per game player in the KHL, but we saw him be serviceable.
He played like this with
flashes,
some finishing ability, right?
Yeah.
Which like even with Sochi, like again, the scoring wasn't necessarily there, but he was involved in the offense and he was super reliable.
Yeah, and it's like, so we've seen it, not at the NHL level, but like we know there's more there. So it's more of like a where is it? Like it'd be one thing if it was like
last year. We saw it in some games last year.
Yeah. And it would be one thing if like, I put a pass in the shin pads, or if like he had this rotating, inconsistent line of line mates, or if the Wild as a whole were just bad, right? Like, it's the fourth line in a bad team. He's going to get caved in. But like none of that's the case. So it's just like, I want more. Like, again, I don't think it's that he's bad. I don't think he's a liability, but like we know there's more, and we want to see a little bit more out of him. And I hope maybe we will, but to your point too, like maybe it's just the coaching staff being like, hey, once you guys get across the red line, get it in deep and get the top six on the ice. Maybe that's their job. And if so, all right, I guess keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. No, and I don't think it's the bigger ice surface, because if anything, that like his defense would probably be hampered first with that second taken away. And it's like, it's weird that like he's good on a smaller surface in that regard, but yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, like I said, I share the same concerns, but like my biggest one is like how is this going to be fixed, and do the Wild care right now, or do the coaches right now really care about his particular lack of offense when again like they're winning and they're not leaking goals? And is their priority, okay, let's give this guy some extra reps whenever we can to get the scoring? I mean, there is pro development that should be on their list, and I imagine it is, but like let's hope to see. And I wonder, like, I haven't heard like, you know, people ask in scrums or anything about this yet, like, are starting to question this, or when they have access to Billy Guerin. So like when do you think, like, you know, Joe, Russo, Jesse, you know, our friends in the media are going to start, maybe when they have access to Billy Guerin next, be like, or even some of the coaches, pro development, whatever, are going to start poking, be like, hey, like, you know, Brett Nisha just did this podcast. No.
That'd be great.
But yeah, like when do you think they start doing that? Do you think it's necessary to start asking these questions at this point, like we are? Because I mean, we're starting to ask them.
Yeah, I think right now, no. Like you said, I think as long as they're winning, it's not going to be an issue. But I think if all of a sudden they go into this scoring funk, and you're looking at, hey, they're not scoring. Now you're looking at a line that's getting, only scoring 33% of the time when they're on the ice, getting scored on 67% of the time. Now all of a sudden those numbers start to look more like a liability, right? And I think that's when the heat turns up for those guys. It's not a problem until it becomes a problem, I think is kind of what I'm along the way I'm trying to say. I think this is on Russo's radar a little bit. I think more so, I think with Trenin, I think it's going to remain the bigger story. I think how much Trenin doesn't do more just because of the contract. Yeah. Where like Murat's still making, like, he's on a rookie deal. Like, he's doing a lot of fine things. Like, this is his rookie season, and he's so. I guess we're giving him tough love because we know that there's more there, and that 16 game sample size. And I know we there's various cases in the National Hockey League where you'll see a guy in one season do really well, and then it just kind of fades. And 16 game sample size, much smaller than a season. So that might have been a flash in the pan, but I don't know. I still think there's a lot of water in the well there, and we just need. And this is his first like big speed bump as a pro. Yeah, and like again, it's not that he's playing bad. We've seen more. We want to see more because we know he's a talented player. But I think like my biggest takeaway I want for people is like, we need to stop deflecting the blame from him. Like at some point you have to want more out of the player himself. Like the teammate around him can only do so much. Eventually it's like, hey, no, Murat's the only one who can shoot the puck for Murat. Like other players can't shoot it for him. So it's like those types of things and things to remember. So yeah, other players could just like stay in the center lane and not fucking skate to the bench every time. But that's. Oh, I am so glad you asked. Actually ripping it up right now in the KHL with a solid 16 points in 27 games. You ain't first, you're last, Ricky Bobby. My friend played with him in Connecticut, eh? My buddy was the captain for the team, and said he was a good guy. Yeah, he just seemed like he didn't think he had to buy his time in the AHL. So just went to Iowa and was like, I'm good. Spent 3 years here in Connecticut. I'm good. Probably still making good money overseas. So wish him best. Oh yeah. Speaking of, did you see Alex Simmons? Or not Alex Simmons? That's a freaking throwback. I was thinking of the Capitals. Kuznetsov. Did you see that nasty goal? Yes, that was crazy. And then of course had to hit the Eagle celly. Like for all his shortcomings and struggles outside of the rink, man, is he nasty with his I think it's just good to see like him still looking like he likes playing hockey, right? Like I think there's always that concern of when those really high end players fall off like very suddenly, that it can be like that's got to take a toll on you like mentally and everything. And like Pete was, I believe, at one point checked into the player assistance program. If memory serves. So it's just good. I think there might have been a video that's surfaced after his Stanley Cup win too. Yeah, but like it's just good to see that, right? Like still a guy having fun, still playing, like making high level plays and stuff. So yeah, it was cool to see. Yeah, no, for sure. I can for some reason root for a guy like him more than a hot-headed Nail Yakupov, who still thinks he's somewhat entitled. For sure. Playing in. Oh no, he actually just got traded from China, but he was on the Chinese team recently. Wait, what? There's a team in China in the KHL, Kunlun. Oh, I think I did know that. Yeah. Do you know what's even crazier though? This will give you the same reaction. When there was the Canadian Women's Hockey League, when it was rivaling with whatever the US one was called before, there was a team in China. So like every Canadian team had to fly to freaking China, and they'd play like a couple of weeks there so that the Chinese team, and then no wonder it folded. Let's just say that. Like, my God. Same owner who owns Kunlun, and I think like Brandon Yip has talked about that guy just like wipes his ass with $100 bills. Like he's so rich and like just gonna wax the floor with that team. Like, oh my God. Dude, you know what's crazy? Brandon Yip,
because he's a Chinese Canadian. He played for Nashville for a bit, and he bounced around the league, third, fourth line. I forget what podcast this was on, but he was saying that that he got private jet from Vancouver to wherever he was playing in China, and the owner was on the private jet because he was doing some business in Vancouver. He said he invited him on, and he said the owner is so rich he gets the carpets changed every flight because he just spits his chewing tobacco on the ground. That's how just disgusting, literally and figuratively rich this guy is. And he said, yeah, just like his throne, and he's just like, pfft. And then his servants would just like rip up the carpet and replace it before his next flight. And this guy's just like insane.
Incredible. Absolutely bonkers.
Anyways, well, that does it. I'll say, Brett, very good job of finding some things to talk about this week, because I was looking down an empty pipe of no news.
I'm trying to think. I was like, all right, penalty kill. No, I already talked about that. Trenton not doing anything. No, I already talked about that. Brady and Spurgeon being good. No, I already talked about that. It's like what are we talking about?
Still playing out of his mind. Yep. I mean, we talk about that every single week. And I mean, man, last night against St. Louis too. It's just like,
I will say this next stretch, I think it'll be interesting when you have obviously some really good teams in Edmonton, Calgary off to like a surprisingly good start this year. Winnipeg looking pretty solid. Obviously, like best team I think they're the best team in the league right now. So it should be a good test, and 2 of those on the road, and then a home game against Winnipeg on Monday night. Like that's a big one. I think
that's
like
a big one.
You're in the groove of things now. Aside from Zuccarello, you're going to be healthy, and I think like this team still hasn't beaten Colorado, Dallas, or Winnipeg, I think, since the 2022-2023 season. So you'd like to see that. So I think Edmonton tomorrow night should be fun. Seeing what happens when either team goes on the power play, because Edmonton is one of the few teams in the NHL that's all year been worse than the Wild on the penalty kill. They're still sitting at 68.6%, so not very good. But the thing that they do have going for them is their power play, or maybe not. Their power play is actually shit too. It's 17.3%. It's worse than the Wild. So special teams, I think, is how Wild win tomorrow. Obviously, you slow down McDavid and Draisaitl, but make them pay if you get on the power play and try to get to the power play. And then if you take penalties of your own, try to kill those off. But excited for that one. Always excited for games against Winnipeg. I always cross my fingers because maybe that's when we get the Russo bingo board space of him going off on a rival fan, but we will see.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Revo literally looked like he had a hit on Nurse.
Yeah, that was. I still can't believe there are people trying to justify that. Like
that was bad. I mean, I think Nurse, they said 10 games. 10 games he's out. I mean, he was out, he was literally out of it. Like he was knocked the fuck out. Like,
and his face is bleeding.
Oh yeah, and swollen instantly.
It was brutal. People like
how many games did Reeves get for that? Or did he get any?
5, I think.
Really, just 5?
I think it was 5.
Man, I remember Rafi Torres was throwing hits around like that, and I know he was a repeat offender, but like I'd imagine Reeves is probably a repeat offender.
Yeah, maybe it's been long enough, maybe where it's like, hey,
right,
like hey, now your leash is like there is no leash left. Like we have you by the collar, or if you do one more thing. Like,
I remember Rafi threw those around at the end of his career, and it was like not 25 games. It's like, jeez.
Well, I joked, I'm like the Leafs are probably better for it because you're a worse team when. Your team is worse when he's on the ice. And like the whole intimidation factor bullshit, like we saw that with the Wild, it didn't work. Like people took their looks at Kaprizov and he didn't do anything about it. Like,
but he scored goals when Kaprizov was out.
Yeah, I had that 3 games stretch.
We'll always have that.
Yeah.
Where can they find you, Brett? And tell us also, because we had a few more live viewers here this week. Tell us about your player cards every week as well.
Yeah, so player cards every week. You can find them on my Twitter at @B_Marsh92. Also on Blue Sky, which I believe it's it's B_Marsh92.bluesky.social, or I can't remember. It's a really long tag, but You'll find me in there. B-March92. I think I'll come up. Player cards on both of those. We go over game score basically for every player that played that night on the Wild, how they stacked up against each other. And then also I do have a weekly newsletter called the Weekly Wild Wrap Up, which is just a weekly newsletter, something Wild related. This week I did kind of a deep dive into the micro stats behind the Boldy Kaprizov line, as well as a little bit of film review and just kind of what makes that line work from a technical standpoint. That was a pretty fun one to write. I had no idea that I was going to do it until about an hour before I did it. I think it's probably been my favorite of the 6 that I've done so far. So if you haven't checked that out yet, I encourage it. I had a lot of fun writing it. So that's where you can find all that stuff. The podcast is on Twitter at Wildly Informed. The O is 0. We'll be coming to Blue Sky with that probably in the next day or 2 here as well.
There you go. At VI Sports Talk for me on all social. I'm starting to get a little bit more active on Instagram, but most active on Twitter/X. Check out the YouTube channel if you're listening via audio. It drops Friday morning, but if you want to listen to it a day ahead and interact with us in the live chat every Wednesday, sometime between 7:30 and 8:30, we go live. That's just basically what I'm going to be saying. Sometime between 7:30 and 8:30 every Wednesday. Aim for around 8. Sometimes it'll be earlier, sometimes it'll be later, but you can expect it, and you'll see it every Wednesday. You'll see the stream up, and that will be the start time.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe next Wednesday because I think they have a 6 o'clock game against Buffalo, so it might be a little.
That
bit
one
later.
might be later. I think that's one of the only like Wednesday games of the year too.
It's one of like 4 or 5. I think there's not very many.
So there you go. And Swerve, I appreciate you speaking Celsius, even though like I'm like used to the Fahrenheit. It still reminds me of home.
Is that what it is in Minnesota? That's -10.
I guess so. I don't think it would. Swerve, there's no way.
It's 29.
There's no way.
Fahrenheit, so.
I was just gonna say. I would have been way colder running on my side.
0 is 32, right? That's freezing point.
You're asking the Canadian dude.
So, no, and Celsius freezing is 0.
Calgary.
Right?
Oh shit, it's cold in Calgary right now. Dang, dude, shout out to Calgary.
Because 0 degrees Celsius is your freezing point, right? That's where water freezes.
0, yeah.
Yeah, so that's 32 Fahrenheit. So yeah, it'd be probably like maybe -1 here at most.
Oh yeah, well then it got to freezing because it was I think like 28, 30 here today.
Yeah, that's why it's freaking snowing.
Snow and shitty. Hey, by the way, shout out to Calgary. I lived in Calgary for 3 years. One of the most underrated cities in Canada.
It's one of the only cities in Canada I've been to.
There you go. Did you go to Stampede?
No, so I went to Calgary, Edmonton, and then Banff were the 3 places.
Banff's beautiful. Yeah,
Banff is one of my favorite places I have ever been in my life. It was
Banff,
so cool.
And then right near Banff is Canmore, which is like same sort of mountain. You know,
it's possible I went there too. It was like when I was like 6 or 7 years old. So it's like right where that memory line blurs between I can remember things very vividly or not at all. Right?
Yeah. So it's like images almost or like moments. Yeah. No, I hear that. But no, Calgary's sweet. Lake Louise, Canmore, beautiful in the winter and summer with Banff. And yeah, Calgary just being at like the base of the mountains is cool because you're like close to all that stuff and you're also close to everything that we love about Alberta as well. But anyways, let's wrap this up this week, Brett. Last word goes to you, my friend.
Yeah, I got nothing. Hopefully the Wild will give us something interesting to talk about next week. Hopefully that's something good, but if it ends up being something bad, otherwise maybe we'll do, we'll say we need more offense out of somebody else.
There you go. We'll dig into Lauco next week.
35W was shit. Thanks for asking.
Good night, everybody.
All right. See ya.